Well, my second wife, my first wife passed away, and she's making me choose between her or my son. Because my son's not taking kindly to his new mom. He thinks that I moved on too quick and that he just doesn't like her. So here's the ultimatum. I have to send him away to a boarding school if I want to stay with my wife. And you know what? I think I'm going to do it, and my son is going to hate me. But you know what? I love my wife. My son and my new wife, they don't get along at all, and I think I may be the end of my rope. I've tried my hardest to create a stable home and help them find some common ground, but they're like oil and water. For some backstory, my first wife Denise died suddenly when Joy was 12. It was hard for both of us. Joy was really close to his mom, even closer than he was to me. They shared a lot of the same interest and bonded over stuff often, and I can confidently say that he has not been the same since. I haven't either. But I've been taking it day by day. We went to a lot of therapy after, and while Joy seems to be coping better, he's still not the joyful boy that he used to be. He's very reclusive and stays to himself, and though I know he has some friends in online communities, he does not seem to be interested in socializing in real life. 2.5 years after Denise's death, I met my new wife, Richa. She's smart, compassionate, funny, and so full of life. I was immediately enthralled by her. She did not mind that I had a kid from a previous marriage and said that she'd always wanted to be a homemaker. At the same time, I was worried about my son's reaction. I'd never brought up the prospect of remarrying. I thought maybe he wouldn't care, because he was very much a teenager at this point and I'd ceased being cool. After Richa and I have been dating for about 6 months, I told my son that I was seeing somebody and things between us were getting serious. He just said okay, and went back to what he was doing, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. But Richa seemed disappointed by his response. I assured her that he's a good boy, and would warm up to her eventually. They did not go to meet each other until about, 2 months later? We went to a local fair, and Joy did not hang out with us much, which upset Richa because she wanted just to get to know him. A few of his friends from school were there, and he went on rides with them instead of Richa, and she kept trying to get me to make him spend time with us. But that's just how Joy is. He tends to keep to himself. She thought it was disrespectful that he went out to spend time together and he was running off with his friends. So, I decided to cut the night short and take us to a restaurant. I also gave Joy a little talk in the car. He said he did not want to get in the way of our date, so he just kept to himself. And if she wanted to talk to him, she could have just said so. Well, we got to the restaurant, sat down, and had a nice little chit-chat. Though I could tell Joy was getting bored because he was being very short with his answers. So I decided we should call it a night. When I asked him what his impression of her was, he said that he thought she was too nosy and invasive with her questions. I told him she was just excited to meet him and wanted to get to know him better. After this, I would often invite Richa over to our house for dinner. Their interactions did not get any better. Joy was not warming up to her in the way that she wanted, and I told her to be patient with him, he's a teenager. Well, months after that, I told Joy that I was going to propose to Richa, and he asked me if I was sure that's what I wanted to do. I said yeah, and he said then do it. No more, no less. I took that as his blessing and proposed, and we held a small wedding a few months later with close family and friends, and she moved in right away. She immediately took over and got the house in order. We repainted the living room, the kitchen, replaced the old furniture, but this is where things started to take a turn. She wanted to replace some things in Joy's room, namely his mattress, and she also wanted just to paint and add a shelf for some of his stuff, just so it's a little more organized, which Joy agreed to. When the stuff came in, Richa wanted her and Joy to decorate the room together, but Joy spent the weekend doing it on his own. He even asked his best friend's dad to bring his truck so he could throw out his old mattress. But what upset Richa the most was that he did not use the paint color that she picked. Instead, he dug up the old paint color of his mom for the room in the garage. She asked him about it over dinner, and she said the color she picked out was ugly, and not all what they agreed on. She seemed hurt by that, but apologized. She wanted to redo the room together because it would be a good bonding experience, and he said he didn't want to bond with her, and that really hurt her feelings. I went to talk to Joy about it later that night, but he did not feel like he had done anything wrong. He said Richa is always looking for excuses to question him and try to get into his room. She's barged in there so much that he had to start locking his door, which he gets mad about. Now, guys, I work all day through the week, so Richa and Joy, they're home a lot. I don't know the dynamics of what goes on when I'm not there because no one tells me up until this point. I know Richa also has offered to drop him off at school because she did not like the other boys that rode the bus, but he would decline. I asked him if he could at least apologize for saying he didn't want to bond with her. Anyways, after I talked to him, I went to talk to Richa. I asked her if she had been barging into Joy's room without him knowing, and she said that she was just trying to help tidy up. She says that she's worried about Joy, who doesn't like the kids he hangs out with and that he's always cooped up in his room. She thought Joy hated her guts and she felt like, she was walking on eggshells around him. I told her I'd already talked to him about his behavior. In the end, Joy apologized, but our problem did not end there. So Richa, she planned a little family holiday. But he didn't want to go because he was getting a summer job with his best friend. He wanted to save up money to replace some of the parts on his computer. I had to pay to change the flight dates, which thankfully wasn't too much. Then there are constant arguments concerning the chores. Joy is usually good about it, but has to be reminded sometimes, and he gives Richa an attitude. I feel like I'm always doing damage control to keep them from going at each other. I don't know why Joy feels the need to constantly challenge Richa. No matter how many times I talk to him about it, absolutely nothing ever changes. The worst incident by far happened last month. It was on the weekend. I was doing some yard work and Richa was doing the laundry. I'd sent Joy out to grab a few things from the local hardware store. And when he got back, he went up to his room for a while and then came down in the kitchen and started yelling at Richa, asking if she had been in his room. Well, I knew that she had taken his laundry up to dry, as she always did, and Richa said that she'd only tidied up a little bit and emptied out a strange bottle of liquid that she found. She'd read online that kids sometimes huff strange liquids to get, high. She also throws away a few bits of metal that she found on his desk, which were parts of a game or something he was working on. He blew up on Richa and asked her if she was a, slur, and also a moron. He said that he told her time and time again not to touch the stuff in his room, but she's too nosy to care. He said that he was sick of her always trying to invade his space and that he wanted nothing to do with her, and a whole bunch of other stuff I would rather not repeat again. I had to jump in to get him to calm down. He stormed off, saying that he had to go dig through the trash. While I don't think Richa should have touched his stuff, his reaction was so overboard. After dinner, I went up and talked to him. I told him he did not have to like Richa, but he should at least try to get along well with her because she was a part of our family now. I expected him to treat her the same amount of respect as he treats me. I grounded him for like a whole weekend, no video games. He just asked me if I was done and then went back to what he was doing. When I spoke to Richa that night, she said that she was feeling less and less welcomed in this family and that every time there was an argument, I took my son's side. I explained to her that there's no sides, and I just want them to finally get along. Also, she had a hand in this argument. He did not just get mad at her for no reason. She said that, we needed to do something about his behavior and he needed to learn some sense of structure. She floated the idea of boarding school, but, no. I shot that one down. I'm not sending my son away because doing so would not solve any issues he's having, and he would come back resenting me. So now both Joy and Richa are angry with me, and I don't know what to do here. I just wanted to figure out how to get them to see eye to eye. Guys, can you maybe give me some sort of advice? It would definitely be appreciated, and I will be back for an update. Updates number 1. I know a lot of you have strong feelings about my wife, but I assure you she has the best intentions. From the moment I told her about Joy, she was excited to meet him and get to know him. Obviously, that has not been working out, but I don't think she's been intentionally malicious towards him because of it. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and now the situation has evolved. Last night, somebody vandalized the school and broke one of their CCTV cameras. They spray painted one of the walls on the outside, and guess what it said? My stepmom, Richa, is a... Yeah. I think we can all assume who did that, and it was right near the entrance of the school, next to the sign with the school's name on it, so anyone who drove by could actually see it. It was still there the next morning when all the kids went in and the parents were furious. So the school had to rush to cover it up with paint, not before a bunch of people snapped photos to post it all over the interwebs. Ugh. Needless to say, we were called into school and had a meeting with the principal. Even though I begged and pleaded with her, she said that she had no choice but to expel him since there was damage to the property. It was also a police matter. They'd already launched an investigation, but since the camera was so badly damaged, it would take a while to retrieve the footage. So for now, Joy has not been formally charged. He maintains his innocence, saying that he'd been nowhere near the school after hours. He's even got his friends to call me and vouch for him, saying every time he's been out, he's been with them. I don't believe it, and I can't even look him in the face anymore. He's been grounded indefinitely. Richa and I have been talking about what we should do in the wake of all of this. And she brought up boarding school again, saying that being in a new environment with new people could help Joy develop better interpersonal skills. I'm seriously considering it. I mean, what he did was not only criminal, but also extremely disrespectful towards her. I don't know what's going into this kid. I know I said I did not want to send him away before, but if he's developing a rebellious streak, I need to do something before it gets worse and he lands himself in even worse trouble. Well, Richa said this just proves that she was right all along, that he hates her, and she said if I did not do something about him, she would leave. She would not even fight for the house or anything, she would just leave. So that night, I get on my computer and started looking at boarding schools. There are actually some in the area, but they're all booked up. The best option I could find was 2 states over. I booked a meeting with their admission officer, and I know Joy is not going to be happy about this. We've lived in this city his whole life, and all his friends are here, and I just hope that he does not hate me. Update number 2. It's been almost a week, and I had a long talk with all the admission officer at the boarding school. She assured me that Joy would be well taken care of, and she gave me a virtual tour of the school and showed me all of the different programs. She assured me that even though we're a month into the school year, they would give Joy extra classes to get him caught up in the curriculum. They had a computer science program that I think would be perfect for him, an esports team, and a gaming club, and I'm hoping catering to his interest would help soften the blow. Richa and I had a long talk about it, and I think we're going to go ahead and send him off. I've already booked his ticket and paid the tuition, and Richa and I decided to tell him over dinner that night. When we all sat down, I tell Joy that Richa and I were talking a lot about his behavior. He said again that he didn't vandalize the school. Well, I tell him all the evidence pointed towards it being him, and I could not let it slide. I told him I'm sending him off to boarding school to finish the rest of his secondary education. He was to leave 2 days later, so he'd better start packing. For a while, he just stood there in shock. Then he started to cry. He started screaming at me, asking if this was Richa's dumb idea. I said we both decided on it, and I think it would be good for him to have some structure. He said his mother would have never done this to him and that she would not even believed him. He was mad that I did not even wait for the police to complete their investigation before I just shipped him off. He said if I would just have waited to see the CCTV footage, I would know he didn't do anything wrong, that he was my son, and I should at least give him the benefit of the doubt. I told him the decision was already made. I felt bad, but I had to be firm with him to make sure that nothing like this happened again. I sent him upstairs, and I told him to get packing. Joy has never spoken to me since, and 2 days later we drove to the airport to drop him off. He grabbed all of his stuff without saying a word, and I wanted to walk him in and give him a hug, but he went ahead without me. While I feel like this was the right thing to do, I also feel awful. I've picked up my phone several times with the intention of calling him to tell him I'm coming to get him. Richa keeps telling me that I did the right thing and saying I should just take a break. We could go on a trip together or something to take my mind off of it. But this is my boy, not, it's my only kid. I feel like I betrayed him. Update number 3. I've made a mistake. So it's been about 2 weeks since I let Joy off to boarding school, and I've tried calling and texting him many times. But he's refused to respond, and I ended up having to call the headmaster to get any semblance of contact. I was told he's doing fine, but he doesn't want to speak to me. This has been making me depressed, but that's not even the worst thing that's happened thus far. The other day, the police show up at my house, and I thought they were there for Joy, but they were actually there for Richa. They said they recovered the CCTV footage, and it showed that Richa was the one who vandalized the school and destroyed the camera. I looked at Richa and asked if what they're saying is true, and she broke down, saying that she made it look like Joy did it so I would get rid of him, and she felt like he was ruining the marriage because I was always on his side whenever they had a disagreement. Well, I was livid. I start to scream, asking her if she's crazy. My relationship with my son was ruined because of her, and I asked the police to get her out of my sight before I did something I would regret. She begged and pleaded with me to help her while they slapped the cuffs on her hand, but I could not even look at her. I also asked them if there was any way I could see the CCTV footage. They said it was posted on their official Facebook page to ask the public to help them identify the culprit. After they left, I went to my laptop to watch it. Well, you could see where Richa's car pulled up on the burb. She was wearing a hoodie, but her face was still in full view. She pulled out a spray can and wrote the incriminating words on the wall outside the school. Then she looked up and noticed the camera, and you could see the shock on her face. She grabbed a few rocks and threw them at the camera to break it, and I could not believe what I was watching. She wasn't at all the woman I married. I packed all her stuff out from my house and put it out on the lawn. I don't care if people come and steal it. The next day, she came back knocking at the door and asking to talk. Someone must have posted her bail, I guess. I told her I didn't want anything to do with her. If she wanted to talk to me, she would have to go through a lawyer because I'm getting a divorce. She begged me to give her a second chance so that I could bring Joy home. We could be a family and she would never do anything like this again. I told her to leave before I call the police. That got her going. Since then, I've contacted a divorce attorney, and I've been trying to think of ways to make things right again with Joy. I don't know if I even deserve his forgiveness at this point, but I have to try. Final update. Hey, it's actually been a while, but I've been a bit busy. I spoke to a lawyer about filing for a no-fault divorce, and I don't want to have to fight this out in court. Not that I think Richa would gain anything from it, but I would rather the process be as smooth as possible because I have bigger things to worry about. Plus, we don't have any money or investments tied together, so we could just part ways amicably. More than anything, I did not want to see her face or be in her presence again. Last I heard, she'd been charged with trespassing, vandalism, and destruction of public property, and she was being made to pay for the damages that she did. Good. I hope she rots. The next thing I did was go down to Joy's old school just to talk to the principal. I told her it was actually Richa who vandalized the school and not my son. She said that she was aware of that, and she's been trying to reach me and Joy to apologize, and she said that Joy was more than welcome to come back if he wanted, and they would make sure that he'd been given extra time to catch up on what he missed. Armed with that information, I went home to try to reach Joy. Except this time I couldn't. Even the headmaster said Joy doesn't talk to him much because he keeps trying to deliver messages from me. So I decided to go to Joy's friend, and I asked him to pass a message to Joy for me, that he was welcome back at his old school, and I would book a ticket for him to come home on the weekend, and he got the message and agreed to return. Well, I met him at the airport, and he looked different. He'd cut his hair short and got a tan. He didn't say anything to me for the whole drive, and when we got home, I asked if we could talk. He just shrugged and sat at the table, and I just kept apologizing to him over and over. I said he's right about waiting for the police, and I begged for his forgiveness. He said no. He said he only came back because he missed his friends and his school. He said the only reason he's even staying at home is because he was a minor and I was still his guardian. But as soon as he was able to, he's leaving because I've shown him that I don't care about him as much as he thought I did. Well, that cut me pretty damn deep. He's barely spoken to me at all since then, and heck, I barely even see him. He doesn't spend much time at home, and when he does, he's up in his room with the door locked. He only talks when he needs something for school, money for a field trip, or something. I'm gutted. Absolutely gutted, and I've completely ruined my relationship with my son. I keep wanting and wanting and wanting to talk to him. But, he'll look at me, and I'll see he's still angry and very hurt, and he has every right to be. This is completely my fault. Top comment from all the posts. Let me know what you think about this one. OP, you deserve this. You let an interloper into your house and into your son's life and allowed her to sabotage your relationship with him. Your son was begging you to listen to him and to believe him. You chose to go against him, and if you had just thought for yourself instead of letting that woman absolutely manipulate you, you would not be crying to us right now. You've known this woman for 4 years at most? You've known your son his whole life, and yet you chose her over him. I hope when he moves out, he never visits or speaks to you again. Matter of fact, don't be surprised at all if one day your brakes go out on your car. Karma.